Hello, we're back. This is part 4. We're going back into the methods section. We just reviewed hypotheses from this study. So we're back in the Netherlands. This is not the United States. We're looking at, I think, the mean age 13. We're looking at 3 high schools. There were 79 participants, 66% female. They received about US $27 for their participation. And there were initially more participants, but these participants completed at least 1/3 of their daily assessments. Also, they completed 3 depression screeners over the course of this study. They were all given smartphones that buzzed at random intervals, I believe within 90-minute periods, and they were invited to complete a survey on their phones. The measures. There was one of current negative affect. So when they got the buzz and they went on their phone, they answered to what extent they felt each of these 9 items: jealous, anxious, ashamed, irritated, worried, angry, guilty, sad, lonely, and it was Likert scale. They also described the most recent negative event and how long it had been since. They also thought about that negative event and responded to the same 9 affect items, to what extent they felt each of those affect items. And then momentary emotion regulation. They responded to which of the 8 ER strategies we just reviewed they used to downregulate, to try to return to neutral baseline. They could choose multiple. And there were kind of like statements of each of the ER strategies. And the depression screener was the 27-item CDI. Results, this is from the first set of hypotheses, to examine which strategies were employed most often by adolescents. They did a frequency analysis, and this is the order from most frequently to least frequently used. Take a moment to look at that. You can pause it. The order was slightly different for boys and girls. Girls used ER strategies in the order provided here, but avoidance and suppression were flipped for boys. And girls used all ER strategies except acceptance more often than boys. From the second set of hypotheses, results showed that with every 1 unit increase in peak negative affect, and this was a mean of all 9 affect items, the probability of using acceptance decreased. So acceptance used less in the high emotional intensity conditions. And in contrast, the probability for using problem solving, rumination, distraction, social support, avoidance, and suppression significantly increased. So these were the high intensity ones. And as they predicted, hypothesized, higher intensity was associated with use of more than one ER strategy. And there was no relationship found with reappraisal. With this one, they used rumination as their comparison. It was their kind of negative. They thought it would be negatively linked to would be not successful. Let's see. If you remember, just go back to the hypotheses. They compared to rumination these different strategies. They found that acceptance, problem solving, and reappraisal were successful in downregulating peak negative emotions. Acceptance, problem solving, reappraisal. In contrast, current negative affect did not change or did not differ from when they used rumination, when they avoided, distracted, suppressed, or used social support. And then the fourth set of hypotheses They approach this question by examining relationships between momentary ER strategy use and depressive symptomatology. And they computed correlations between the relative frequency of each strategy and depressive symptoms. And out of all the ER strategies, Only rumination and social support showed small, significant, positive associations with depressive symptoms across the whole sample. So this is very interesting. They didn't think, and I wouldn't think, and maybe you wouldn't think, that social support would be that it would be positively associated with depressive symptoms. Okay, and so they're kind of like just discussing this. They say perhaps it's important to better understand the nature of the support that adolescents are receiving. It may be that the social support came in the form of co-rumination. Co-rumination is defined as rehashing problems with friends by dwelling on the negative emotions, which has been associated with the onset of depression and increases in depressive symptoms, but at the same time, interestingly, high friendship quality in female adolescents. So these relations differ for boys and girls. For boys, there was a negative significant relation between depressive symptoms and acceptance. Now it's a negative association. We're going to move into our next article. Now, in that image is our very own Sherry Johnson, a professor in the psych department. I noticed her name, and then I went and looked at her lab. So I highlighted in blue. Research suggests that emotion-related impulsivity robustly predicts a broad range of psychopathologies. And this is one study. That's, the first author is Carver. This is one study that's kind of getting at the same idea. And look, there's a section on graduate student researchers. If this happens to be your cup of tea, maybe you can look into this. I have not met her. I've never spoken to her. Okay. Now this article, here we go. First, we're going to talk about goal attainment. We have a goal we want to attain. The goal can be short or long term. We can reach the same goal through many different actions, or we can take one action that relates to many different goals. We pay attention to discrepancies. We notice a discrepancy between where we are now and where we want to go. So we engage in a discrepancy reducing loop to reduce the discrepancy or gap in order to bring where we are now and our intention into greater conformity. This is also called a negative feedback loop. We want to shrink or reduce that discrepancy. That is called approach. All the way at the beginning of lectures, I talked about approach and avoidance and valence and arousal, and now we're kind of talking about approach and avoidance. We might alternatively notice that we are approaching a negative or undesirable condition. We perceive a threat. Oh no, I'm becoming this way. Oh no, this might happen. So we instead seek to engage in a discrepancy expanding loop. We want to spread that where we are now and where it seems there is a threat that we might go. And this might reroute us toward another end goal. So this is the basics of goal attainment we need to know. Another thing we talk about to understand this article is the level of abstraction. This is again related to goals. We can place goals on a hierarchy from the concrete to the abstract. At the concrete end, we engage in sequences of actions. Let's say we're looking at the visual anchor here, the example of like water. To go to a well, to get some water, to bring back to your community, you must do sequences of actions, very specific actions. And these sequences of actions are a program, the daily act of fetching water from the well. The programs are in the service of more abstract principles or values. Health, spending time together at the dinner table with the family, having fellowship dinners with the church on Sunday, Shabbat on Saturday, whatever the case may be, kind of something there, then the principles and values can also be related to even more abstract notions of self and community. That's where I have the community water management piece. So the intended self and the intended community, and it's even more abstract. So maybe beyond just wanting to have water for your table, for your dinner table, you want the whole community to be healthy and hydrated, etc. Now, we'll next talk about the link between affect and action. There are two feedback systems operating in concert. We've got the affect loop, which is directly influencing the action loop. Still could be like fundamentally brought down to like how we think influences how we feel. Feelings with a positive valence mean that we are doing better at something than we need or expect to. I'm doing pretty well. And feelings with a negative valence mean we're doing worse than we need or expect to. Oh no, I'm not doing well. So when there's negative affect, that implies a need for greater effort, which informs the action loop, whereas positive affect implies that less effort is needed than there has been, which influences the action loop. And it's been argued that this asymmetry contributes to a system that we use to prioritize. It's our priority management system, shifting from one goal to another as a focus of behavior. We'll pause here and do one more.